Seizure of U.S. Navy sailors, 2016. On the evening of January 12, 2016, in the treacherous waters of the Persian Gulf, a high-stakes international incident unfolded that would thrust Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, into the global spotlight once again. Two U.S. Navy patrol boats, part of Riverine Squadron 1, were on a routine transit from Kuwait to Bahrain when they strayed into Iranian territorial waters near Farsi Island, a heavily fortified IRGC naval base. Within moments, the IRGC Navy, always vigilant and ready to exploit any opportunity to assert Iranian power, moved swiftly to intercept the American vessels. The seizure of 10 U.S. Navy sailors and their boats was not just an act of maritime enforcement. It was a calculated display of Iran's ability to challenge U.S. dominance in the Persian Gulf and humiliate Washington on the world stage. For the IRGC, this incident was not just about capturing sailors. It was a masterstroke of psychological warfare and geopolitical brinkmanship. The two U.S. Navy boats, equipped with advanced navigation systems, should never have strayed into Iranian waters. But a combination of mechanical issues and navigational errors led the vessels off course, putting them perilously close to Farsi Island, a highly sensitive IRGC military installation. The IRGC, which maintains an aggressive posture in the Persian Gulf and closely monitors all maritime activity near its territory, wasted no time in seizing the opportunity. IRGC naval forces, operating swift attack boats, quickly surrounded the U.S. vessels. Heavily armed IRGC commandos boarded the boats, taking the 10 American sailors, 9 men and 1 woman, into custody. The entire operation was carried out with surgical precision, underscoring the IRGC's ability to act decisively in its own waters and assert control over its maritime domain. Within hours, the U.S. sailors were transported to Farsi Island, where they were detained and interrogated by IRGC intelligence officers. The capture of U.S. sailors was a propaganda coup for the IRGC. Within hours of the incident, Iranian state media broadcast footage of the captured sailors kneeling with their hands behind their heads, a stark symbol of U.S. vulnerability in a region where Washington has long projected power. The images of American servicemen and women at the mercy of Iranian forces were broadcast repeatedly on Iranian television, serving as a powerful tool to rally domestic support and reinforce the narrative of Iranian strength and American weakness. For the IRGC, the timing of the incident was impeccable. Just days before the U.S. and Iran were set to implement the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, commonly known as the Iran nuclear deal, the IRGC saw an opportunity to send a clear message that despite the diplomatic thaw between Tehran and Washington, Iran's military and revolutionary institutions remained defiant and unyielding. The IRGC's leadership, deeply skeptical of the nuclear deal and fiercely opposed to any rapprochement with the United States, viewed the incident as a way to remind both domestic and international audiences that Iran's hardliners were still in control. The IRGC's handling of the incident was a carefully choreographed exercise in psychological warfare. While Iranian officials initially claimed that the U.S. vessels had violated Iranian territorial waters, the IRGC used the incident to showcase its ability to confront American forces in the Gulf. The detained sailors were treated with calculated care, neither abused nor mistreated, but kept under tight control. The IRGC ensured that images of the American sailors apologizing for the incursion were broadcast widely, portraying Iran as a benevolent but resolute power capable of defending its sovereignty. As the world watched in anticipation, U.S. officials scrambled to secure the release of the sailors. Secretary of State John Kerry, who had developed a direct line of communication with his Iranian counterpart, Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif, engaged in frantic diplomacy to defuse the crisis. Behind the scenes, Kerry and Zarif worked tirelessly to negotiate a swift resolution, aware that any escalation could derail the implementation of the nuclear deal and plunge the region into chaos. After 15 hours of intense negotiations, Iran agreed to release the U.S. sailors. On January 13, 2016, less than 24 hours after their capture, the sailors were released unharmed and returned to their base in Bahrain. While the U.S. military expressed relief at the quick resolution of the crisis, the damage had already been done. The IRGC had succeeded in humiliating the United States on a global stage, demonstrating that despite the diplomatic thaw, Iran's hardline institutions were still capable of confronting American power with impunity. The aftermath of the incident was a tale of contrasting narratives. In the United States, the Obama administration sought to downplay the incident, emphasizing the swift resolution and the importance of maintaining the momentum of the nuclear deal. U.S. officials framed the incident as an unfortunate misunderstanding rather than a deliberate provocation, focusing on the positive outcome and the safe return of the sailors. In Iran, however, the IRGC hailed the incident as a victory for the Islamic Republic and a demonstration of Iranian strength in the face of American arrogance. The IRGC's narrative emphasized that Iran's sovereignty had been defended and its territorial waters had been protected from foreign intrusion. Iranian media portrayed the IRGC's actions as a righteous defense of the nation's honor, reinforcing the perception that Iran's hardline institutions were the true guardians of the revolution. But beyond the immediate propaganda victory, the IRGC's seizure of U.S. sailors had deeper strategic implications. The incident underscored Iran's ability to challenge U.S. naval supremacy in the Persian Gulf, highlighting the vulnerability of American forces operating in a region where the IRGC maintained an asymmetric advantage. The IRGC had demonstrated that it could capture U.S. personnel, project power in its maritime domain, and shape the narrative of confrontation to its advantage, all without triggering a full-scale conflict. For the IRGC, the incident was not just a tactical success. It was a validation of Iran's broader strategy of asymmetric deterrence. By demonstrating its ability to challenge U.S. forces and disrupt American operations in the Gulf, the IRGC sent a message to Washington that any future confrontation with Iran would come at a steep cost. The incident also reinforced the IRGC's position as the ultimate guardian of Iran's sovereignty, bolstering its influence within the Iranian political system and undermining the moderate voices that had championed the nuclear deal. The seizure of U.S. sailors in 2016 was not merely an isolated incident. It was a calculated maneuver by the IRGC to assert Iran's dominance in the Persian Gulf, humiliate its adversaries, and reaffirm its role as the vanguard of the Islamic Revolution. Through its bold and audacious actions, the IRGC had once again demonstrated that in the unforgiving waters of the Persian Gulf, Iran's reach was long, its resolve was unyielding, and its capacity to challenge American power was unmatched.